Where would we be without the modding community? So many games that have had such long lives would have long ago died out. So many excellent creations would have never seen the light of day. The modding community has a tendency for getting extremely creative with the things that it does. Sometimes this creativity can take a game and turn it into something completely different in the best way possible. In this feature, we're going to take a look at a few such examples, as we talk about mods for games that were not horror that turned them into legitimate scarefests. Fallout 4, Pilgrim, Dread the Commonwealth. Fallout's universe is almost too perfect for a horror game, and often Fallout games lean hard into that. Often, we've wondered what a proper horror game in this universe can look like, and every time we're left yearning for Bethesda to go ahead and make that game already. While there's no telling when that will happen, the mod called Pilgrim Dread the Commonwealth is more than serviceable as the next best thing. New weather effects, dynamic music, overhauled lighting, and more come together to turn the Commonwealth into the post-apocalyptic wasteland of your nightmares. Half-Life Paranoia. Like Fallout, Half-Life is another series that has always flirted with the horror genre without ever actually going all in on it, though Alex does come pretty close at times. And the Paranoia mod for the first game gives a very, very good taste of what a proper horror Half-Life style game would have looked like back in the day. Paranoia is essentially a game all of its own, with its own unique story and characters, its own levels built with a Russian aesthetic, improved AI and aiming mechanics, and best of all, actual scares. Goat Simulator Slender Survival. A goat simulator horror game? Sounds ridiculous, right? Well, it is ridiculous, but surprisingly still pretty effective and really, really fun. The Slender Survival mod blankets all maps in complete darkness and replaces the old goats with scary slender goats. Immune to almost any sort of damage, hellbent on catching you to finish you off, the slender goat is much more formidable than its name lets on. There's even a hard mode that makes it that much more of a threat. RIMWORLD HORRORWORLD. RIMWORLD is already a game where you and your colonies have to overcome everything a harsh landscape can throw at you, from infighting to the deadly outside world, and it only gets harder as you make more progress. So of course you need a mod to make it even more challenging. HORRORWORLD adds a new mutant enemy and faction to the game, who wants nothing more than to kill your colonists and destroy everything you have built. It doesn't necessarily turn it into a game that will legitimately scare you, but it will nonetheless make you fear for your colonists' lives more than ever before. Half-Life 2 Nightmare House 2. Taking the source engine and using it to create something completely new and utterly horrifying, Nightmare House 2 is a work of genius. It puts you in a terrifying haunted house setting, and rather than easing you in with its scares, throws you into the deep end right off the bat. Environmental horror, psychological horror, good old jump scares, it's got it all. Fallout 4 Whispering Hills. What do you get when you take Fallout 4 and cross it with Silent Hill? Well, this is what you get. It envelops the entire game in a thick, suffocating fog, and as you traverse through it, you can constantly hear chilling, spooky sounds of terrifying beasts from the Silent Hill series. When it gets dark, you'll occasionally be dragged into the dark otherworld, where for a few minutes, you'll have to survive an onslaught of monsters made out of nightmares. STARCRAFT 2 Resident Overmind. STARCRAFT 2's Resident Overmind mod is a perfect example of how creatively mods can take a game's core structure and use it to make something completely unique. This turns the RTS into a top-down fight for survival, where you consider a lone Marine trying to return to base while fighting against terrifying alien monstrosities, with atmospheric lighting and solid visual and audio effects adding immensely to the experience's horror feel. Minecraft PT Silent Hills map. The name pretty much says it all, doesn't it? Hideo Kojima's PT, in spite of being a short demo, has been lauded as a piece of horror genius and has inspired tons of horror creators out there. There's no shortage of PT remakes, but the idea of one in the blocky world of Minecraft is particularly curious. Sure, the conversion of dialogue into text boxes and Minecraft's own music do a lot to dull the horror, but by and large, this is actually a surprisingly solid recreation of PT. Doom 1993 Lasting Light. Taking a game that's all about furiously ripping and tearing through hordes of demons and turning it into a terrifying experience where you're defenseless against the encroaching dark and the nightmares it brings with it shouldn't sound like a good idea, but it really is. Lasting Light is a mod that any horror enthusiast should play. Your lantern is your best friend, so make sure you keep its fuel topped up, because if it ever goes out, you'll be assaulted by enemies that feed on your fear. From a creature that hides in the dark and is aggravated the more you look at it, to a terrifying woman who constantly stalks you, there's more than enough nightmare fuel to go around in this Doom mod. Don't Starve, the Screecher. A mod for Don't Starve, which is already a pretty tense and oppressive game, and turns it into an even scarier one. Best of all, the mod is made by Klee Entertainment themselves, which should tell you all you need to know about how good it is. The Screecher uses the base game's core systems and mechanics and applies them to a Slender-style game of cat and mouse, where you have to escape certain death from a terrifying and relentless pursuer. Half-Life: Cry of Fear. Though Cry of Fear started out as a mod for Half-Life 1, it was so good and so well received that it spun off into a unique, separate thing. And it really is that good. Completely alone and isolated, you make your way through a dark and abandoned city infested with nightmares as you try to unravel the mystery of what went on there, all with survival horror mechanics harkening back to genre classics. For fans of this genre, this one is a must-play. And that about does it for this video. If you enjoyed what you watched and want to see more from GamingBolt, you can always hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon next to it. That way you will never miss any of our videos.